to the thefogvlog.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Easy Does It. We're talking about Fuji Apple today. Like we always do, we'll kick off with market share, then we'll go into notes, and then finally have Deets finish it off with application. So take it away, Richard.
Right, there's an awful lot of Apple flavors on the market, but if we narrow it down specifically to the Fuji type of apple, there are three main players in the market. The longest standing and most established of those is the Flavor Art Fuji. Then we have the Capella Fuji and the Jungle Flavors Fuji. Taking a look at ELR first, FA Fuji weighs in with a whopping 81,869 recipes. Capella lags in second place with 3,046, and then Jungle Flavors brings up the rear with 295 recipes. So FA at roughly 25 times as many recipes as its nearest competitor. Moving across to all the flavors, FA Fuji is listed under two different flavors on the site. It seems to be under Fuji and under Fuji Apple. Putting the two recipe totals together, we get just under 6,000. We get 5,998 recipes. Jungle Flavors comes in second place with 336, and Capella in third place with 305. So certainly if you're starting out mixing and you're looking for one Fuji apple to get, and you want to have as many recipes as possible for it, then Flavor Art is the clear choice. 20 to 25 times as many recipes as any of the other Fuji apples. But if you read flavor notes around the net, and if you look at flavor reviews, I'm thinking here particularly of Concrete River's review in which he pitches the three Fujis against each other and talks about the pros and cons of each, then in terms of the actual flavor itself, the distinction isn't that clear-cut. Each of the three has got advantages and disadvantages. So if you're actually looking for just that perfect Fuji flavor, this might be a good idea to pick up all three and try them for yourself and see which one best suits your needs. In terms of recipes, obviously Flavor Art way out in front. So let's stick with the Flavor Art, and Theo, you can give us some notes on what this tastes like as a single flavor.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Flavor Art in general. Just what I've been tasting of late, doing a lot of single flavor testing. This is just one of those examples. I started out at 1%. Not much apple flavor, but the skin of the Fuji is there. Surprisingly, not as sweet as I expected. We know that a lot of people use this in fruit mixes to bring that sweetness in there. But, I had the expectation that it's a lot more sweetness than when you taste it on its own really is. But it definitely is on the sweeter side, if that makes any sense to you. It's got a delicious syrupy aftertaste, which I think makes this so popular. The mid notes are all there. It almost feels like if you think about a cream, but not quite a full cream, and I think that imitates the body or the fleshiness of a Fuji apple really well. Then I went up to 2%, and wow, this is pretty much the cheapest one shot in a bottle that you can find. You literally can just add a little bit more sweetness and potentially some WS-23, and you'll have a pretty together apple vape, right? It really comes together. So the syrup, it's syrupy but not overly sweet. It's a well-crafted mix. It's full dimensional, so I'm getting the skin at the top, I'm getting the body notes, and that syrupy kind of finish as well. It's all there. I think if you're going to start going beyond 3%, it might start getting a little bit overwhelming. Maybe even a little perfumey. I'm not sure. I didn't go that high, but that's what I'm expecting from this. But anywhere from 0 to 3% is pretty much fine to use. Most people are using it at 1 and 2%. Deets, you want to talk about application?
So this is definitely one of my top used concentrates. I mix a lot of fruit beverages, and candies. This has been in my stash since I started mixing. So for me, this is mainly used with fruits, fruit beverages, and candy profiles. It's also used in bakeries. Um, so in terms of bakeries, when you use it with a bakery, it's not used as the main apple. So let's say you're doing an apple pie. This won't be the main apple, but this would be used to accentuate the apple that you're already using. Because like when you're doing a apple filling, which is a cooked apple, there's a little bit of flavor that, to me, the flavor kind of dies down a little bit with the combination of the crust and pies and all of that. So if you wanted that apple to pop a little bit more, then you would combine that with Fuji in terms of your bakeries. With fruits, this has been difficult to mess up for me. I mean, I've been using it in everything I've thrown it at. It's been great. I mean, I've never put it into a mix and then thought, okay, the next version should not include Fuji apple. I mean, if anything, it should get more Fuji apple. And that's always how it's been with my mixes and Fuji apple. So for me, at the lower percentages, that's anything from 0.25 to about 0.5%. It pops the fruit. So used in an additive way, it brings in a little bit of vibrancy. It pops the fruit. My notes here, I say, if apples could add a zestiness that's not citrus, this would be it. So what I mean with that is where you normally use something like a lemon Sicily or some kind of a citrus to pop your fruits. And that, I mean, everyone knows with some fruits, you need just that little bit of pop that accentuates the rest of the fruits, like a berry or something. This, in the same way, pops anything you throw it at when it comes to fruits, fruit juices, or candies at the lower percentage. So at the mid-range percentages, this adds a little bit of sweetness for me, while it still pops or while it still boosts or pops the other flavors. But it's not sweetness in terms of sweetener or like a sugar sweetness. For me, what this sweetness brings on is it basically boosts whatever fruit you are using's natural sweetness or mimics a sweetness. So let's say I'm using Inawera Shisha. That doesn't generally have its own sweetness. It's definitely a very potent orange, but it doesn't have that sweetness. Now, if I add Fuji apple into that, it's going to give you that sweetened orange type of sweet profile. It's not going to give you orange with sugar or sweetener type of sweetener added in. And I think that's what makes this such a great concentrate, because from your mid-range to high-range uses in percentage, this brings in that sweetness, and as you mentioned, Theo, that syrupiness. It's almost like a candified syrup apple or something like that. It's just beautiful. I mean, it adds a mystery into most mixes I use it in without being noticeable or without being able to pick it out as, yes, there's definitely Fuji apple in it. It's easy to find it if it's used at the higher percentages from about 1.5% to 2%, 1% to 2%, I'd say. But at the lower percentages, that brings in this mysterious something is delicious in here, but I don't know what it is, because it doesn't generally stand up as its own concentrate for me. It instead, without fading, it complements and boosts the other fruits, specifically for me with fruits and candies. It complements and brings in any other sweetness or that vibrancy that might be lacking in that flavor alone. So this is just a delicious concentrate, and I mean, if you don't have it already, you should get it. I'm not even going to give you the option of buying 3 like Richard did. I'm telling you to get it. It's delicious. Get it.
Yeah, I almost thought that I'm Fuji blind, but obviously I'm not. It adds that syrupy or fruity sweetness without taking over a mix really well. And I think where we see this, in a culinary kind of way, or when they are crafting juices, fruit juices, you'll always, if you flip the bottle around, you'll see a little bit of apple juice or a little bit of pear juice was added, and it doesn't take over the juice. It just adds to that juice. So it adds sweetness to that juice. And yeah, so this is not a new trick. It's been used before. Guys, is there anything that we need to add on Fuji apple other than have to have?
Yes, just one thing. Look, my notes say this is amazing, and it sure as hell is. But don't expect this to be your B1 and all apple. It's not. It's not on its own a full-on apple. It's definitely a Fuji apple at higher percentages, and it brings on that full-on Fuji magic at higher percentages too. But if in your mind you are thinking, I'm going to go out and make an apple, a green apple, or whatever apple you ate, this is probably going to need a combination of another apple, like a Beryllium apple or country apple or something like that. I mean, that's generally what I would use it with. In any case, if it's an apple, this will be in the apple profile regardless of what's used. But as it's on its own as a single flavor, it's great, it's delicious. But don't expect a green apple if you're going to mix this up as a single flavor. But it's delicious though.
Cool, guys.
That's
there
all.
you have it. Richard?
If you are looking for an apple to pair FA Fuji with, you need look no further than FA. Their apple stock is actually a good companion to FA Fuji, and this works with most or several FA fruits, things like their pears, their oranges, their apples. They have a more sort of bright poppy in your face one, like Fuji or white peach or Taja mandarin. And then they've got more of a background one like Stark apple or their orange or their plain peach flavor, and put the two together and you can get quite a nice rounded fruit out of it.
Thanks, Richard. I think that brings us to the end of the show, guys. If there is any recipe that, showcases what Fuji apple can really do, please mention it in the comments below. If there's any notes that we didn't cover, please leave those in the comments below, or any recipes that really use it that you love. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching the show. Thanks, guys. Cheerio.
Yes.